Welcome to the Entrepreneurs Network program. My name is Ike Engelbaum. I'm the founder of the Entrepreneurs Network of Michigan. We've been around for over 40 years. We have weekly meetings. We have a website, entrepreneursnetworkofmichigan.com. My mission is to interview interesting entrepreneurs who are all willing to share their ideas with us, both the good ones and the bad ones. Because as it has been jokingly said, you should learn from the mistakes of others because you'll never live long enough to make them all yourself. And we are also devoted to helping you live a successful and balanced life. Please join us in the whole entrepreneurial spirit. And if you are an entrepreneur, a budding one, or a glowing one, I think you'll find our camaraderie and friendship both enjoyable and hopefully profitable. I'm really excited about having one of our ambassadors from the Entrepreneurs Network of Michigan with me, Tom Starks, who is an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. And Tom, you are involved in the healthcare field.
I'm a retired healthcare professional, Ike. I was a social worker for 35 years or so. But basically I ran programs, wrote a lot of grants, had a lot of things funded, and I rolled out those programs. But that career, that came to an end 2 years ago. And I've had an interest actually in entrepreneurship for probably 25 years now. So in the last 2 years, I have gotten involved with the health and wellness company, and as a result of that, I've also developed a online presence, and so we're beginning to market more and more online. And in the last couple of years, we've done about $350,000 in sales through online stuff, and it's interesting. And I'll tell you, the thing I love about entrepreneurship is that you meet interesting, exciting people. And it's probably the biggest difference why, one of the reasons why I left healthcare is that you're in environments that are not always pleasant. And you get into an environment like this where you get to meet some very, very interesting people and network, and you learn and you get ideas. It's just awesome.
Right. Well, I've joked about it, and I'm not the first one. We call it the healthcare field, but it's really the sick care field. I'm a pharmacist, and let's face it, you only see patients when they're in need of medications and they have something to deal with. And that's one of the exciting things about entrepreneurship, although now we've adopted a lot of the Eastern culture in terms of treating people. America is the greatest country in the whole world in terms of treating you when you're in an emergency room, okay? In fact, they're expanding it more now.
Oh, absolutely. It's unbelievable what's happening. But the entrepreneurship, it's always about trying to solve a problem before it really gets out to the market or gets out into the masses. And so you have an opportunity, and I'm really excited to hear what Paul has to talk about today.
Well, Paul, I got to know you at what we call the Gateway Inventors Group, which is a Michigan version of Shark Tank, right? And we meet on a monthly basis, and anyone has got an idea for an invention or an idea, they're certainly welcome to contact us. And you made really a phenomenal presentation. So give us a little idea about your background, Paul.
Well, I guess I'd be your classic entrepreneur. I've been on my own for 42 years. I've got 40 patents. I've sold 10 million products I've patented. I've had 5 companies. I've raised $27 million from angels. So my most recent company was First Sense Medical. I started that 12 years ago, and it's a new breast cancer tester that's actually going on the market this month. It's painless, radiation-free, affordable, done in the doctor's office. And the projection is 95% accuracy, and our goal is to save 10,000 lives. I was honored with an honorary doctorate for that product a few months ago.
Do I have to call you Dr. Paul now?
Well, when the CEO came out and our employees asked, he said, no, you don't have to call Paul Dr. Angot, but I will. But anyway, so that's probably my best product per se. It's 7 patents on it.
I see. Well, you got a couple more that we're going to be talking about. And I just wondered, they say many times you get your ideas in the bathroom first thing in the morning. Do you have any particular spot? How does an idea come to Dr. Paul?
The breast cancer project was because my mother had breast cancer. She died of it. She had 2 mastectomies 13 years apart. And I watched the pain and agony she went through, and I just said, I'm going to try and solve that problem. And I do not have a medical background. I did about 10,000 hours of research, started a company, and then just started raising money, and that's what I did. Other products, we'll be talking about the billboard. I was just riding down the road one day, and I had been in a factory in China, and I had seen them building LED billboards, and I knew they were expensive, and I'd worked on another LED project. I know they generate a lot of heat, and the electricity is still expensive because there's 500,000 LEDs in a billboard, and so I said, there's probably a cheaper way to go about that. Some of my other inventions, I had invented a clock thermostat to turn your thermostat down at night in the 70s. I had invented a belt drive ceiling fan. Grew from $200,000 to $6 million in sales in a year in that. And then I invented wireless doorbells and door chimes because I saw a need. Our doorbell broke, and it's a pain because you got wiring and transformer and all this stuff. So this way it's wireless, so you just put the button on your porch and you plug in the receiver and you're done. And I've sold 6 million of those. So my products are in 3,000 retail accounts, and I've personally sold Home Depot, Sears, Lowe's, Ace, Cotter, and so forth. So I get the ideas in various ways, but usually I start from a need in the marketplace and then develop the product. I do have an engineering background, but I find geniuses to develop the stuff.
Right. Well, they say that necessity is the mother of invention, right?
That's correct.
Some of these things are rehashed many times because you see a need and then you figure out a way to get there. Now, I'm impressed. You said you spent how many hours in this research thing?
The breast cancer tester, I spent 3 years. I had about 10,000 hours, between 3 and 4 years before I raised any money. Yeah, it was pretty intensive because I don't have a medical background, so I didn't know what a mammogram was or a clinical breast exam. So, or the other technologies, ultrasound and so forth. So I researched it, and then I talked to doctors, and I have a penchant for picking people's minds. My dad had an expression, you can't buy experience, so cash in on someone else's. and that's what I've done my whole life. So, for example, this morning on the billboard, I was with Tom Carroll, who was one of the top salesmen in the country for Out Front, the largest billboard company, for 3 hours. Tom just retired. 40 years, though, with Out Front. They have 400,000 billboards. They're $1.6 billion in sales. And I've met with Tom now 4 times, but this morning was an intensive 3-hour meeting where we went through our PowerPoint and fine-tuned it. So how can you do any better than the guys that's been in the business for 40 years?
I know. I'll tell you, when you think about it, and you've actually given, and you still have in the works of possibly doing some courses on the whole idea process. Is that correct?
Yes. I used to teach a course called I've Got This Great Invention, Now What Do I Do? It was at Oakland University. It was 3 hours a night for 6 weeks, every other week. And 1 week I'd bring in a patent attorney. But it was really about taking an idea and then licensing it to a company. Because typically, you get a 5% royalty and a company does, say, $2 million a year, that's $100,000 a year. There's a special provision in the tax code that you can get capital gains treatment. It's not ordinary income. So, a company might sell your product for 10 years, you make $100,000 a year, that's $1 million, and that way you don't have the headaches of starting a company and doing manufacturing and marketing and sales. So that was what the course was about.
Now tell me, I've heard a great deal about licensing and all. What is the danger that you have someone license it and they run off with it on their own? Is there, does the legal system protect you in that situation?
Yes, it does, and the laws now have triple damages. So it used to be the case, it was very common 20, 30 years ago, that people would knock off inventors. But then the laws got changed, I want to say 20 years ago, and now you have triple damages, and there's firms that specialize in lawsuits going after large companies. I know one in the area. It happens occasionally, but it's pretty rare. The more difficult problem is just finding the right company that's a legitimate company. I've licensed a couple of companies. You need to have a good patent attorney. You need to have a good structure in place, and you have to pick a reputable company. You got to do your homework, but I think it's out of whack. The problem is not that someone's going to steal your idea and run off with it. The tougher problem is finding the right company to manufacture and market it. That's where you need to spend your efforts. Okay.
Now, as far as doing the research, what strategies have you used to identify who is the right company?
I usually, let's say it was like on my doorbells. Let's say you had a different way of building a doorbell. You go after the companies that have the right marketing and sales and distribution. They can get the products built. But you just go out in the marketplace and you can see it. I mean, you can also go on the internet, but depending on the product, I tend to specialize in consumer products. You look in the marketplace and then start asking around. Pick companies that are synergistic to the marketing and sales. Because usually you can find someone to build about anything.
So do you feel the biggest strength that you have with your idea is the fact that you do have an engineering background?
No, my biggest strength is that I'm creative. No, my biggest strength is I'm a marketing sales guy. So when I'd sell my wireless doorbells and door chimes, it's because I knew more about the competition than they knew about their own products. I do my homework. You win in the marketplace, but I do it by strategy. I know the size of the market, the number of outlets, I know my cost, I know the competition, I know the features and benefits, I know the trigger points. Like if you're selling a retailer, if you're selling Home Depot or Sears or Lowe's or Ace or Cotter, I hate to say it, they don't really care about your product. It's got to work, don't get me wrong. But they want to know what their return on investment is in their store, which is a combination of your packaging, how you promote it, your advertising, the features and benefits, your point of sale displays. What are they going to get for that space? It's not really whether your battery life is a year or 2 years in the product. It's the overall strategy. What's that return on space? So it's not always what you think. Don't get me wrong. We had the best products on the market. I had PhDs developing it. Like when we had patents on our doorbells and door chimes, we had 8-year battery life, and our competitors had a year. Okay, which does help sell it. All right, there's no doubt. We had phenomenal sound. We put a CD-ROM in a door chime back in the early 1990s. I didn't even know what a CD-ROM was. We had phenomenal sound. Those things sell it because that's features and benefits. But the real bottom line is, what are your sales per square foot in the store? So it's a broader perspective. So you have to take all those things into account.
So in retail, of course, there are people that's their whole life is figuring out how to maximize the square footage as far as profitability.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you're going from breast cancer detectors and all of a sudden with the billboards, how do you suddenly, a retail setting, who do you turn to get advice?
Well, okay, let's take my most current product, which is the billboard in a box. I saw the need. I went online. I find out that when you go from a static billboard to an LED type where you're changing customers, you can increase your revenue from 5 or 10 to 1. So if you have one customer at $3,000 a month and you get 6 customers, you get 18 grand a month. So there's a huge advantage to the billboard company to go LED. But then I start looking into the cost. In round numbers, it's between 150 to 200 grand installed. All right, where ours is 40 or 50 grand installed. So we have a 4 to 1 or 4 to 5 to 1 price advantage, and we scroll, so we change messages. Now we can't do them instantly like you can on an LED because ours is paper and it scrolls. But when you start talking 4 or 5 to 1, it's a slight drawback, but we've had huge interest from 3 out of the 4 largest billboard companies. So you look at from that perspective. Tom, did you have a
So,
question?
yeah, when you say static, you're
Yeah.
talking about billboards that simply don't change. They go up
That's-
on the,
Yep.
the advertisement goes up, and it can stay there for weeks, months, however long.
Years, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
correct.
And so one of the advantages with the LED is that you're always scrolling, so the messages are changing.
Yep.
And as drivers go by or whoever happens to see the billboard, you're getting more and more eyeballs on multiple messages.
Right. So, yeah, as I say, you go from $3,000 a month, it's actually every 4 weeks, to say $18,000 every 4 weeks. So it's a huge revenue increase when you go where you have multiple customers, but they're expensive. They're ballpark $200,000 and $20,000 a year for electricity, plus they're banned in 11 states. So a lot of communities, they say they're too bright or they don't want them. LED is under 3% of the market. So we're going after that 97% of the market that are static, single-face billboards. That's really our market.
Tell me, I've always been fascinated with the whole use of billboards. Now with the internet, they can track how many hits they have. How do they price? Is it number of cars that drive
Yes.
by?
Yeah, there's tons of statistics on the number of cars on every road. There's statistics on number of cars on every road in the state, in all the states. And that's what it really is. Which is eyeballs on the billboard. Yeah, that's how you price it.
Yeah. And with the LED, you're going to have an energy savings, I assume. The bulbs are going to last a long time. And
No, you don't have no, it's the opposite, Tom. An LED billboard is typically $20,000 a year because it's on 24/7. Ours is $1,000 a year. It's 20 times less for ours.
There you go.
Okay, you have 500,000 LEDs in a billboard. Okay, the difference is in a billboard you're generating light from the billboard out. In ours, you're using sunlight during the day, and you just have lights at night. Okay, it's 20-to-1 less. So ours is green compared to LED billboards, and that's one of the drawbacks to LED is as I say, it's 20 times more energy consumption.
So has the reception been favorable? I know billboards are sort of controversial, but the fact that you're actually saving energy, is that giving you a more warm welcome?
Yeah, we've had a response because it's more green relative to LED. The big picture is just that why the billboard, we've talked to 3 of the 4 largest billboard companies in the country, Outfront, Lamar, and Adams. We didn't talk to Clear Channel because they're not in our market. And we talked to a smaller company, Brooklyn. They love it because it's 4 times cheaper. So, especially in the smaller markets, Flint, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, which is the majority of the market, you can't afford LED, all right, whereas you can afford billboard in a box. So, there's about, in round numbers, 120,000 14-foot by 48-foot billboards. That's the size of our billboard. About 120,000. We're only planning to sell 100 the first year, 200 the second year, 400, and then 600. So it's an extremely small percentage of the billboards in the market, and we can do incredibly well with our company.
So do you want to share with us, how do you sell it? What happens? You get on the phone?
Well, we plan to hire the gentleman I mentioned this morning, who's been in the industry. He's one of the top regional VPs in the largest company for 40 years. He's interested in marketing selling our billboards, and we have another sales guy lined up. I've got 2 or 3 others also in the industry extremely interested in it, because I say huge potential. So yeah, we'll find the best of the best in the industry. I mean, I know how to sell, but I don't know our industry, so we'll find the best of the best in that industry, and go after it. Like Tom said this morning, he said, I'll call Bill Jones. I'll call Tom. He starts naming names. He knows all these guys. He's been in business 40 years. That's how we'll sell it.
So you go to people that
That
already
are
have
in
the
it?
contacts.
Yes, they already have the contacts. They know it inside and out, and they've been doing it for 40 years.
Right. Well, I got to give you credit. I mean, takes you from one field to the other, so your brain must be really well exercised. Is that right?
I see a need in the market, and then I tend to be very creative. As I say, I have 40 patents. I sold 10 million products I've patented. And I have a design on the billboard that I did myself, and I've costed it out myself. I've got an outstanding company lined up, 15 to 20 million in sales, to build a prototype and then take it into production. So, you know, you have to cover all the different bases. And then we have some investors, and, you know, we have an extremely high investor return. So, you know, you look at all aspects of it. Now that's what I've done, because I look at, you know, product development, design development, prototypes, the patents. We didn't touch upon that, but we have 2 patents on it. It's very broad. And then, you know, and then the marketing and sales, and I have a 30-page business plan.
So do you feel that's vital to have a business and marketing plan, or can you sort of wing it? What is your opinion?
No, you need to have it. That's a strong suit. I have a in-depth business plan on. I have a costed bill of material. I have 7 pages on the patent. I have a separate marketing and sales plan that's 3 to 5 pages. I have, you know, strategy, what you're going to go after, return on investment, financial projections. You have to do your homework.
Now, as far as your experience, you said that you actually have helped other inventors in their process. Can you share with us some of the experiences that you've had, and good and bad?
Yeah, I've probably helped between 100 and 200 inventors over the last 42 years. Typically what I find is the inventors don't follow my advice.
Sounds like my wife and I.
Yeah. Well, and the reason is because a lot of inventions come from engineers. And, you know, my degree is in engineering at Oakland University. But the engineers, they're comfortable with engineering and design. So they'll develop a new product or a new, one guy had a new way of, it was a bike for golf courses that you could partly pedal, and he saw a need to get exercise as well as he was an avid golfer. You know, another guy had a fastening system, and he wanted to just focus on that. And I said, well, you got to look at the market and the cost and how you're going to sell it, and then return on investment for your investors. You need at least a 10-to-1 return. The billboard, it's much higher than that. We're shooting for a 50-to-1 return. But and you got to look at selling the company at, you know, a 6 or 8 or 10 times EBITDA. That's pre-tax profit. So you got to take all those things into account. And too often, an engineer only wants to focus on engineering, and he doesn't want to look at market penetration, cost, sales, distribution, financial projections, and, you know, so that's they stayed focused. Whereas I have a broad background. And I find people that can also, I will find expertise for more depth in the various areas.
You know, that idea of business, or what is it, business in a box?
Billboard in a box?
But it's also business in a box. So from your point of view, you're looking at the product and how to create it, but you also know that there's so many other facets that go into it. So it is the marketing, it is the packaging, it is how am I going to present this to the market that I want to get into. And so you're not offering just a product, you're offering kind of a business in a box as well.
Sure. Yeah, you have to look at it from the customer's perspective. I mean, we'll be selling to people like Outfront or Lamar or Clear Channel or Adams. So you look at, you know, what does it cost? What are your terms? What's your warranty? How's it going to be installed? Then you got to look at it from their customer's perspective, you know, like Wendy's and McDonald's. What's the advantage? Well, you can sell, you know, breakfast in the morning and lunch ad in the middle of the day, and you can have your dinner ad at night, and you can try different colors, and you can go after different market segments when you can change it. And then you got to look at it from a manufacturing standpoint, and then in terms of the investors, what's your return on investment? What's your risk reward? You know, what are the pitfalls? What's the patent position and so forth? You know, where can you fail? So you got to look at it from a lot of different perspectives, and often the inventors will look at it from one perspective, often engineering, and not look at it from a financial or features and benefits or marketing perspective.
You, I'm sure, may remember Groucho Marx. He used to have, if you say the magic word, the duck will come down. We don't have any ducks here, but you mentioned pitfalls. How about going to pot fills? So let's talk about your pothole filler.
All right. So just to wrap up on the billboard in a box, the way what you see is you see a billboard, a curtain comes down, we scroll the signs, and then it goes up and you have a different sign, right? And then for the autofill, so again, where I had the idea was, okay, so here's the autofill, all right? Now there I have kind of a creative beginning to my PowerPoint presentation. Oh, you have to have a great PowerPoint presentation. I spend hours, hundreds of hours.
Do you do that yourself?
I do it myself,
farm it out?
Right. No, I do it myself. So there's the Autofill automatic pothole filler. Where I got the idea was my wife and I were coming home from church. It was snowing, and I hit a pothole, and it was $800. I dinged a rim in my Lincoln, and I thought $800 to just because I hit a pothole. So that's where the idea. And I see potholes everywhere. I mean, Michigan has been the pothole capital of the world, I swear. Right. And so I started looking at. I watched these guys manually shoveling, gravel, and I thought, man, it's so labor intensive. So I knew that I'm working with 3 other PhDs, and they had, one of them worked for me full time, and one is Dr. Casey Chuck. He's one of the top robotic experts in the Midwest. He's a professor at Oakland University. One is Dr. Pavan Vempati, who also has his PhD in robotics. Pavan worked for me for 4 or 5 years on the breast cancer tester. Again, we had robots there. And one is Dr. Jonathan Weaver. He's a mechanical PhD and strong in robotics. So, I know we know how to build it, so we start looking into the sensors. So in this case, you have a dump truck with gravel, and it pulls the trailer, and there's a sensor in the front that says, here's the pothole, tells the driver when to stop, and then there's sensors at the back, and we see the pothole in 3D with the sensor, and we blow air out, we blow out the pothole, then we coat it with hot mix, and then we spray hot mix and gravel at the same time, and then we dust the top with gravel, and you can drive on it immediately. Now that part already exists. We had a product that's with a guy that sprays that stuff. So the hot mix exists, the blowing it out and so forth in the mix of hot mix and gravel already exists. So our contribution is a robot, but it saves 76%. So a county, like in here, we're in Oakland County, if you had 5 of these, would save, in round numbers, $700,000 a year, and it would cost you $70,000 a year to lease them. Wow. And so you say it's like 10 to 1. It's in that range, 8 or 10 to 1 over manually doing it. And hundreds of people are killed each year on hitting potholes on motorcycles.
Wow. And
in India, there's 3,400 people killed every year on motorcycles hitting potholes. Wow. So you could save lives.
Wow. Wow. Well, I'll tell you, you got so much interesting stuff. We could go on for the next 4 hours, but unfortunately, I have a limited amount of time on the air here, and I never like to leave our segment. Paul and Tom, thanks for being here. And my favorite parting remark as far as entrepreneurship is that if you really want to get anything done in life, you'll find a way. And if you don't, you'll find an excuse. And there is no excuse for not achieving your dreams and goals in America, because it is the greatest country in the whole world. Remember, a goal is just a dream with a deadline.